Hello, friends. Hi, tea community around the world. Happy Saturday, April 18th. Hope you guys are having a beautiful weekend so far. I am. The weather's a little funny here in Vegas today. It's kind of rainy around different parts of the valley. So that's a good thing, though. We can always be grateful for a little water and a little rain to wash things through. So today I don't have any particular plan, just gonna give a few industry updates and then also, talk about some tea business education around those updates. So if you guys are interested in, hearing what's going on in the industry, please stick around. If you're on Instagram, you may see this link here. That's a place that you. Hi, Mark. Good to see you. Thanks for hopping in. Yeah, you can join the broadcasted video, which has a bit more of the content through Facebook, and now we are streaming to uh, YouTube, Periscope, as well as Twitch. So you can catch us all over the place, and you can see the live stream. So let me just start talking about tea industry news. I've been talking a lot about the shutdown and how that's affecting the industry and the supply in in our industry from India. But today I wanted to talk a little bit more about the market here in the U.S. and how the market is reacting to um, COVID-19. So the industry and the supply and here we go. Yeah. So you may have seen a lot of people in articles going around making claims about how tea can. Yeah, Jonathan Steele does hop on here and have some fun with us. He actually was a part of the virtual tea festival when we had several different presenters, and Jonathan had done a pottery demo for that, so that was a special treat for us. So yeah, you may have been seeing some articles making claims that tea can either fight coronavirus or help treat it. And I'm not going to say one way or another uh, what the benefits are, but I will say that there is no legal health claim that can be made. So that's the main update I want to make today, and kind of talk about how. Hi, Iden. Hi, all the tea heads. Yeah, just wanted to talk about how labeling, at least in the United States, is regulated, and how different pandemics or different things can easily be manipulated to take advantage of these different health claims, which is, to be honest, illegal to do. So it is your responsibility as a responsible consumer to be mindful of these types of uh, wrong health claims, and also I'll kind of show you how you can go about reporting reporting these incorrect health claims. So, I have seen recently a couple of articles about specific products that have been pulled from the shelf, or specific health claims that have been required to get pulled off of products. And so, these health claims, they may be based on either anecdotal evidence or even some scientific evidence about, how tea has been found to either ease with respiratory, health. And that is something interesting. I saw a peer-reviewed scientific journal study that said that there is a compound, a polyphenol in tea, that is actually used in inhalers. So it already is a known ingredient for asthma inhalers to help alleviate stress in the respiratory system. So when you are having difficulty with breathing, as people with asthma do, that compound can help. Whether or not that compound has been isolated from tea and put into these inhalers, so it's very irresponsible to make that assumption that just because that compound exists in tea, it will automatically work if you drink tea to either treat coronavirus or alleviate the respiratory issues that come along with it. But that hasn't stopped certain tea companies from making these claims. Oh, my little Bitcoin tea pet is down. I gotta help him up. There he goes. So the FDA has very strong regulations. Exactly, Mark. So that's exactly what I wanted to talk about, was that we, as businesses and as consumers, we really should avoid looking at tea as a health benefit type of product and really focus on tea as an enjoyable value in our life. And a lot of other really cool stuff will work out if we see tea in that way. But kind of a theme that we've been talking about in a lot of these sessions is the challenges and difficulty of building business in specialty tea. There are not big margins. There's not big money to be made. So it causes marketers to become quite desperate and to rely upon these types of health claims as their marketing power. So you're right. We really should avoid doing that. At the same time, we have to understand why companies are doing it. But the FDA, at least here in the United States, I don't know exactly how these things are regulated in other countries as well as in the EU, but I know in the US, for health claims, and actually even for the label itself, like the FDA has very particular regulations on how you, like the title of your product and what you can call it, and what ingredient, like the way you list the ingredients and the way that you list the nutritional information is very particular. And the FDA does have the power, although they don't execute this power a lot because they frankly don't have the bandwidth to execute that regulation, unless of course there's whistleblowing, and I'll get to that later about how as a consumer you can participate in that process. But the FDA does have the power to make you recall your products and actually even shut you down if you do not do an effective recall. The protocol of how they enforce these things is, different on a case-by-case basis, but so I'm actually going to drink a tea today from Joe, our friend Joe, that's always tuning in on our little daily lives from Sage and Cedars. Is called Love and Respect. It is a blend of Indian green tea, lemongrass, rose, chamomile, and hibiscus. Oftentimes products like this would have a health claim on it. This is gonna reduce blood pressure, or there's a lot of anecdotal claims around different herbs and different products, but this company is quite responsible in not making those claims. I really feel like consumers of these types of products, they already know the claims. They already know what medicines are good for them, and they don't need like a marketing claim on the label. So that's it's another thing to keep in mind if you are in a business position and selling these health related and holistic lifestyle related products. A lot of times you don't have to market those types of things on the label. Your consumer is going to know those things, and they don't need you to tell them about that. The FDA has their own list of claims that are allowable. And it's very few, because just like how the FDA has regulations about medications, like you cannot get a pharmaceutical product out into the market until there's all of these layers of different testing, including human trials and clinical tests before they allow those pharmaceuticals to be out in the market. Is the same thing with the health claims in food. So there are health claims that have been legally proven. So that's why you can see health claims around like dietary fiber and around like hypertension and heart disease. So cereal companies oftentimes will take advantage of those types of claims, and that is completely legal. You better believe that a company like Kraft or Kellogg's, those are major cereal companies that do utilize a lot of those claims. You better believe that their legal team is up to par on all of the health claims. It's mostly these small mom and pop businesses that are dealing with holistic health products that really don't know about these regulations. So, as angry as you might become that you see an invalid health claim around, a tea product. I know tea products have been associated a lot with these coronavirus health claims. It may be easy to become angry about the irresponsibility in that claim, but really, to be honest, it could just be a matter of ignorance, of just they don't know around these regulations. But it's very serious. I know in the news there's been some mix up about certain medications that a certain president has endorsed that has caused some major health problems. So the same thing can be said with tea. If you make a health claim and convince a consumer, you see this is pink. There's hibiscus in that blend. So that's what's causing it to be pink. But it's very flowery. Also a little spicy. I wonder where that spice is coming from. Maybe from the green tea. You can see the wet leaf. It's a nice, beautiful blend. What's my favorite black tea? That's a big question. Maybe Jinjame. I mean, it's like the most premium, really beautiful, buds only Chinese black tea. It's also, high value, so very costly. Not a tea that I can drink regularly on my budget, but I do enjoy it when I have the chance to enjoy it. So yeah, I just want to chill with this. I'm not looking for a big buzz. Maybe I'll jump into some matcha later if I'm looking for a good buzz. So back to health claims around tea. Tea itself is a big health claim. And, I'll go a little bit later into, what I feel like is appropriate conversations that tea marketers can have around a healthy lifestyle and tea. But making direct health claims such as this tea will cure COVID-19 or this tea will alleviate symptoms of the virus may seem harmless. It's just tea. It's definitely not going to, kill someone. But it could inhibit them from seeking the proper treatment that they do need to seek. And so that is something that we really need to keep in mind as marketers when we give health advice to somebody. And so the easiest thing is just to avoid the health advice altogether. But it's understandable that that's a challenge. So I wanted to talk about the FDA's portal for reporting these health claims and also for keeping updated on different fraud campaigns and fraudulent news. So if you visit the website fda.gov/consumers /health-fraud-scams, and I'll put that link up in the comments everywhere. If you go to this website, it does have, first and foremost, a list of all of the most recent relevant news around current health claim uh, uh, fraudulent cases. And they'll even in these news will tell you what the repercussions for those companies were. So that's just kind of an interesting place to go. And then even on the FDA website too, you can also keep updated on different recalls that are happening. So, sometimes in the news we hear about like romaine lettuce recalls or other type of recalls. The FDA website keeps all of those recalls updated, so even the ones that don't make it into the major headline news, you can stay updated. So that's always kind of interesting to hear how the food industry is performing and what are some of the issues going on in our food supply chain at one point or another. So I'm just finishing putting this link everywhere so you guys can visit this website if you choose to. And so, yeah, first, like I said, there is the health fraud news. So, there's a whole list of articles. A lot of it you can see right now is currently COVID-19 related. So there's obviously a lot of companies, not just tea companies, but a lot of companies that are making fraudulent claims around how their products will treat the virus. That's just predatory marketing right there. And it's nice that we have the FDA there to protect us and to keep us updated on these fraudulent claims. There's a whole bunch of other links, a lot of little details about the different regulations that are in place. And, a lot of this, the FDA covers both food and drug, right? The FDA is Food and Drug Administration. So, don't come to the FDA website thinking you're only going to get food-related stuff. Majority of the content there is going to be related to drugs. Pharmaceuticals are a very high-risk category of consumer products, so you can only imagine the FDA is quite bogged down with regulating drugs. And on another point and related to that, that's always just totally confused me is why food and drug got mixed together. But then we have the USDA. The USDA is the United States Department of Agriculture. They are both, branches, under the, regulatory branch of, or the bureaucratic branch of government. So they're very similar in how they behave and the things that they do, but the jurisdictions of their regulatory powers are, is very confusing and very conflicting. So the USDA has jurisdiction over meat and over dairy, as well as, not dairy. Dairy is FDA. It's mostly meat, and then it's like the agriculture part, the farming part of produce. Once produce goes into post-harvest, so post-harvest is, food industry, like when the tomatoes make it to the food factory where it's going to get processed into its next steps, then it all of a sudden is under the jurisdiction of the FDA. So there's a lot of confusion, and the two organizations behave completely different. They regulate completely differently. And so, yeah, there's a lot of inefficiency and a lot of confusion around how things work. And I, ever since I was in my undergraduate degree and studied all of these things in the food science department, I always wondered why the heck they were never merged together, and the drug and supplement portion could become a much richer, regulated, autonomous piece of the bureaucratic system. But I'm not in charge, so I don't know these things. So at the very bottom of that page, the link that I shared with you guys in the blue box says report a problem. And this is like where you can come in and report things that you see. So if you ever see a faulty health claim that just makes you angry, rather than just going to your social media and exposing, to your followers this fraudulent claim, which is a totally valid thing to do, you're welcome to do that. More effective than that is actually reporting this to the FDA. So that the FDA can come in and actually take care of things. And they do take care of things. And the FDA, the only way that they ever get alerted about these things, because they don't have the bandwidth. Only 2% of all of the food that we eat here in the United States is actually directly inspected and regulated by the FDA. So that means that 98% of all the rest of the food is there's not enough bandwidth to regulate and inspect those things. So the FDA does rely on us as consumers to offer. Hi, Hubert. Good to see you. Happy Saturday. I was inspired by all your baking last Easter, and I've been, doing a lot of relationship building with butter and flour in my fingers. I've been loving it. So yes, again, the FDA really does rely on us as consumers to help them know when these kinds of issues are coming up. So please, if you ever see a faulty health claim around a tea product or around any other type of product that just doesn't feel right, you can come to this website, to the link that I shared, and report that problem directly to the FDA, and they will listen to it and they will respond to it more so than if you were to, post something to your social media. I've been seeing a lot of that. I've been seeing a lot of people, upset with all of this predatory marketing around COVID-19. And when it comes to our food and medicine, it is really important that we keep those companies in check. And so there is a portal here that is very accessible for all of us to keep those companies in check. So that's that. That is the industry update for the day. And now I'm going to segue into giving some advice, tea business advice relating to what we've just been talking about, and around health claims in tea. So tea is a very important. Oh, here we go. Sorry about that, guys. Should have had this ready, queued up. Tea is a very important health product for a lot of people. It is for me. I feel it to be a medicine. A lot of people that I work with and that I sell tea to see it as medicine. And so it's understandable that people do want to attach themselves to a certain health claim and to understand how tea can help them in their life to live a more holistic life. But there is not a single FDA certified health claim around tea. So no health claim legally can be made about tea. Of course, you can try to educate your customers to know how to seek out this information. There are several independent peer-reviewed studies that have proven different specific health claims around different types of teas. But I mean, really, to be honest, from what I've reviewed of what's out there, it is like just the tip of the iceberg. I think that there's still yet to be a lot of discovered health claims associated with different types of tea that just haven't been studied yet. So, but with that said, I think that there are very effective ways to market tea without utilizing specific claims. Okay, Bitcoin's ready to join in. Say hi to everybody, Bitcoin. So, health claims are a funny thing with consumers. Hi, Ethan. Good to see you. Good morning. People want to, they want to attach themselves to health claim, not only for this like promise of a future healthy life, but they want like immediate reaction. And so a lot of the health claims, even the ones that are proven through these peer-reviewed studies, a lot of these health claims are not ones that you'll see right away. And actually, they're not ones that you're going to see until tea becomes a daily significant part of your lifestyle, right? So one of the main health claims that you see a lot in tea, especially around green tea, the Japanese tea companies have invested a lot of money into proving the power and the effects of catechins in green tea is around the antioxidants and its ability to inhibit cancer. But that health claim is not going to become anything until you have a long lifestyle of drinking that green tea and having those catechins in your life throughout a lifetime. So it's really hard to tell people, oh yeah, drink this green tea, it'll prevent cancer. But then you have to also tell them you have to drink this for 50 years of your life every day. Maybe not every day, but regularly. But it has to be throughout your entire lifetime, and a lifestyle part of your life, before you will see that health benefits. So that's a bit frustrating, and hard to communicate to a customer, and actually can come back in a bad way. So you could have a customer coming in and say, "Oh, I saw Dr. Oz, and he said something about tea. Pu'er tea is going to help me lose weight." Great, awesome. There is some validity to that, but again, that's over a lifestyle, lifelong habit of drinking tea. And how that tea can help your body in its metabolism and with processing, fatty foods and all of that. It's people that are looking for a weight loss health benefit, like these are the types of folks that are wanting like to lose 10 pounds in a week, and that's not going to happen from pu'er tea. uh, Perhaps if you only drank pu'er tea for a week and ate nothing else and exercised a whole bunch and didn't retain that water, that could happen. But just implementing pu'er tea into your life is not ever going to create those kinds of results. But of course, integrating a good tea that you enjoy that replaces those sugary soft drinks and helps with processing your metabolism and increasing your body's metabolism over a long period of time will help with your health. And how that will bite you back is that person that came in looking for that weight loss in a week, that magical weight loss solution in a week, they're going to be disappointed, and they're potentially even going to assume that all tea is fraudulent and doesn't work. And if they're new to tea, pu'er tea may be not an acquired taste for them yet. So they may even think that the tea doesn't taste good. And I know that this is the case with a lot of these detox teas that you see heavily marketed on social media, which I think we can kind of say goodbye to those teas. I think the whole economic situation happening right now in response to COVID-19 is doing, a big push out the door for influencer marketing, which has been a big, driver for these detox teas. But these detox teas are usually not pleasant to drink, and you don't lose the weight. So you feel like all tea is fraudulent, all tea is not good, and you end up losing a customer for life because you sold them this fake health claim. Um, but there is good news, especially with good quality tea, very good quality tea. There is a health benefit, or maybe we should call it a health benefit, but there is a physiological effect from drinking good tea that you do feel immediately, and that does make you feel good and will encourage you to create a daily lifestyle around tea, and that is around the L-theanine. So, L-theanine is an amino acid that is found in the Camellia sinensis plant. That's the tea plant. All tea comes from Camellia sinensis. And the Camellia sinensis plant is actually the only bioavailable source of this theanine. Theanine is actually a leading nootropic supplement now. Nootropics is a very fast growing category of supplements that helps with mental focus and awareness, and a lot of like younger male demographics are kind of driving the growth of this category of supplements. These are a lot of programmers and video gamers that want to stay up all night and stay focused. They buy these pill packs and stacks, they call them stacks, that will, keep them focused, and they can just take these pills, which is a mix of caffeine pills and theanine pills. And like the theanine is actually completely ineffective in our bodies without the caffeine. And I believe that there are other compounds that are also useful in accentuating the bioavailability of the theanine in our body, but caffeine is the main one. And Camellia sinensis also has caffeine. So I always like to call tea God's, or tea is the nootropic of the gods, because yeah, that's like the ultimate nootropic that you can take. Um, so theanine changes the caffeine's reaction in our body, and this is why tea is different than coffee. It changes the caffeine's reaction in our body from being this like jolt of body energy that you feel in your heart and can and often spike and then drop. Theanine will make it a slow release of energy, and that energy is not, pumping in your body. It's all mental focus, and it actually relaxes your body. So this is ideal for putting yourself into a meditative state. It's also ideal for putting yourself into a very high level manifestation state, as well as brainstorming. So that's why tea is such an important collaborative tool in even the corporate environment in China and Japan. If everybody's drinking tea together, getting this theanine caffeine combo, then they'll be able to come up with really great solutions together. Empathy levels are really high, and everybody's like calm and relaxed together. It's like everybody like meditated for 20 minutes before they started brainstorming. So this and this hasn't been proven, and this is kind of like a peer-reviewed scientific study that I think would be really relevant to help with this health claim, is that there's a correlation between high quality tea and higher levels of theanine. So if you're drinking tea out of a tea bag and CTC tea out of a tea bag, I think theanine levels are very low. Caffeine levels may be high, and levels of other compounds that may, negatively affect your body's energy, your chi level. But theanine is the key thing that balances everything and relaxes everything. But then your brain is hyper acute, really working strong. You feel really smart, and you can talk really fast, and your ideas are really articulated. And again, really good for empathy and for brainstorming and manifestation. That's exactly what manifestation is. So if you're trying to encourage your customer to acquire tea as a healthy part of, a daily lifestyle, then telling them about the theanine, even though you may think that it's too high level and too scientific, is actually a very effective health claim, because that is something that they can attach to immediately. Like even 1 cup of very good tea, 1 cup of ceremonial matcha has enough theanine in it to create this effect. So they drink that cup and they immediately start feeling it. And you can tell and see that's it. That's what you should be feeling in tea. And then Joe says, yeah, quality is always correlated to health. It's so unfortunate that like a lot of our university research, it's reliant on funding, right? And this funding is not coming from, the good-hearted governments. This funding is not coming from good-hearted nonprofits that, want to create these correlations um, between theanine and high quality tea. But it's being funded by the corporations. And conventionally right now, the corporations are not focused on high quality products. They're looking for research that backs up their commodity-minded, commodity mentality. So of course they want the research that's going to better support supplements. That's going to better support mass production of. So yeah, if you look at a lot of this catechin ECGC cancer prevention research that's been done in Japan, it's all geared towards how can we isolate this thing and then put it into a pill versus how do we create the most ideal response and efficacy of this compound from the product itself, also taking into consider the production of the product and all of these other things. So that's why I think anytime I go to UC Davis with the Global Tea Initiative and I meet somebody that's involved in plant chemistry or those aspects of the research there within their tea program, I always give them this idea. It's like, hey, I think it's really important to look at the correlation between quality and theanine. And also, along with the effect of theanine, right? This is like a meditative, relaxing, focused type of effect. You're going to like better accentuate that effect, not just from like the chemistry of the product, but also in like your behavior and your activities while you're consuming that product. So if you're consuming that product in a very like zenned out, quiet, peaceful state, and you're doing it in a way where you're really focused on what you're doing and it's like ritualistic, then it's going to accentuate that health benefit. So you're going to have a far better efficacy of that compound if you're taking it, through this process of focusing on preparing. This is like meditative and ritualistic in itself. And I believe that even if the milligram per serving that you're taking in this cup versus a pill, let's say the pill has 10 times more, they extract 10 times more of that compound and pack it into that pill. I feel almost like 10 times less paired with this process of making it is even more effective than the pill. And so, I mean, there right there is a really incredible marketing opportunity for any tea company that is thinking about targeting kind of that gamer, young male demographic, which right now is taken over by energy drinks and by these nootropic supplement companies. That you can tell these gamers, like, you can get the same effect from these pills. You can pay a fraction of the price than you would pay, buying these pills, because these companies can charge hundreds of dollars a month for these stacks that you get to take every day. And then you get to enjoy this tea. You get to prepare it. You get to learn something. You get to explore something new. And actually, I wrote this article. It was kind of a fun article I wrote years and years ago, like over 7 years ago, for VentureBeat. Back in the day when I was trying to raise money and trying to be something in Silicon Valley, I wrote this really fun article about how to market tea to gamers. And there's this whole like game theory and game developers, designers of MMO games. So these are like multiplayer, big world games where you have all these different, they play online. So like, I think like World of Warcraft and these types of games are considered MMO. And so game designers have this theory that there are four main personalities that you have to equally balance activities to enable their pleasure, basically. And each gamer is going to be a different blend of these four personalities. And so I think it's the achiever, the explorer, the specialist, like, the know-it-all, and then the killer, right? So, how I related to that to tea was kind of fun. But it's basically like, taking a pill, a supplement pill. If you're thinking about like how you're going to sell this nootropic value to a gamer, taking a pill is like not satisfying anything at all in that. But when you're trying to sell them tea, there's so much that can be said to satisfy those four personalities, right? There's the exploration piece, right? So you can buy teas from all over the world and you can learn and experience all these new things. And then there's the specialists. So you can become like the super honed in tea nerd, which we all know, we've seen online, that's like super fast to correct you when you're wrong on something, they know everything. And then you have the achiever. So the achiever is somebody that like wants to like graduate in this process of knowing something. And tea has that. There's definitely a hierarchy, although it's infinite in my opinion, but there is a hierarchy of acquiring knowledge around tea and around developing your gung fu and your mastery around brewing tea and serving tea and enjoying tea. And then the killer, that's a hard one, but I think that's basically kind of tapping into and as much as I hate doing this, but it's encouraging kind of the elitism around tea, which is kind of related to the know-it-all type of thing, you know. You see a lot more of that in the wine world than you do in the tea world, but it does exist in tea, and there are some people that need to satisfy that. So I just gave a bunch of free advice about how to sell tea to gamers, and I hope that somebody takes it because no one's done it yet. I was considering pursuing it myself, but related to my own business, I am not trying to build a retail brand or a niche within a retail brand. I am definitely happy to encourage someone else to do it, and especially if it's one of my accounts, someone that is sourcing tea through our platform. I'd be really happy to help them in doing that. But this whole health claim around theanine is not something applicable just to gamers and just to wedging into the nootropic niche. But it's something that even a humble little tea shop, or even like a British high tea, and you're trying to get into good quality tea. A lot of people that do high tea service say it's really hard to get their customers to drink high quality loose leaf tea. Bring this into it. Bring this into the conversation. Talk to them about theanine. Talk to them about how tea is not just a delightful experience to have with your friends and wear big hats and enjoy these different sweets and treats to eat, but it's something that can actually elevate your mood and elevate how you're feeling. And then that's how you're gonna get these like lifelong great customers that are addicted to this lifestyle, versus just trying to have some loose leaf in their cabinet. It's like, no, this is a daily part of my lifestyle, and I value it very much. Michael, I'm going to catch up on your comments. I see are you listing off all the stuff that you've been eating? Um, you just wrote a lot of stuff. It's really hard for me to follow that. Maybe you'll have to send me an email and explain what you're talking about. This farmer's market in Costco, um, the dog and cat. Wow, you're having a fun Saturday. That's good to see, Michael. So, Joe, you said the four-part model you're explaining is taking essentially the same approach as Jung's model of psychological archetypes, the Ayurvedic doshas, and the innumerable other traditional models of life. Yeah, see? And it's about gamers, I'll send you, Joe, I'll send you that article. You'll probably enjoy reading it. That was a fun article to write. Really stretched about how to integrate tea into gamers' lifestyle. But, like, I wrote that article, rewatch. Okay. I wrote that article almost 8 years ago. And this was like before tea was cool, don't mind the hipster pun, but this was before tea was cool. And I wrote this, and a lot of people were like, what? Tea is like, this is like grandma's thing, like at that time, like my challenge was like, how do I make tea sexy? How do I make people's perception of tea to be sexy? That it's something beyond, something that your grandma enjoys. But, now, and I think irregardless of all the work I've done, of course, I do take some credit that my work has been a part of the whole of popularizing tea culture among the younger generations. But now tea, if you look at the specialty tea market, like that segment of the market compared to grocery or compared to tea bags or compared to iced tea or all these other things, the specialty tea, like the loose leaf type of tea, the type of tea that I'm always talking about, the main driver of that market is like Gen Z and millennials. Like Gen Z more than millennials, actually. Everybody's talking millennials. Like you go to World Tea Expo and they're like, how do you sell tea to millennials? How do you sell tea to millennials? And it's like, well, it's just how, no, we shouldn't have put it into a generational category. It's like, how do we excite young people? What are young people looking for? They're looking for unique experiences. They are having some limited expendable income, which they're not spending on buying houses now or spending on buying big possessions, but rather experiences and lifestyle, habits. And tea is part of that. And, I think that our generation or our movement and community of tea marketers and tea businesses has been instrumental in cultivating, that marketing for teas. So yeah. So, that's why I think, Joe, you said that so many of your friends are addicted to gaming and energy drinks. And that's why I think that there is like such an opportunity for brands um, to target that and take out Red Bull, take out Monster, let it be tea. Um, you know, and that's like Matcha Go. That's probably the closest company, that has started to do that. That's like the 5 hour energy sized little 3 ounce matcha shot. Elena is using ceremonial grade matcha in this shot, and trying to target. But I think Gung Fu too is something that no one has tried to target. Um, I do remember when I wrote this article, and back whenever I was trying to build a retail brand. When Tealet first launched, we were a retail brand for a very short period of time, like less than 4 months. We were a retail brand. That's where the tins and all of that. We quickly switched over to wholesale because I realized that was where I'd be able to accomplish my goal. So my goal is not to build, a famous retail brand and build a glorious brand around myself, because that would only create an economic opportunity for a small portion of the farmers, and my whole goal is to create like a legitimate opportunity for these farmers. So that's going to require a lot of retail brands, and I don't want to own all those retail brands. I'd rather empower all those retail brands. So that's why we switched the business model that we're at now. But back whenever I was trying to build this retail brand, and I wrote this article, and I had also had a reach out from Tony Gabley from World of Tea, well, now from Tea Epicure, I think he's at. And he had this idea about that correlation between gaming and tea. And I saw it, I understood it. He was like, "Oh, you might think this is silly. Everybody else I tell thinks it's silly." I'm like, "No, that is not silly. Like, this is a thing." And that's like almost 8 years ago, and no one's jumped on that opportunity yet. So, Joe, if that's you, go for it. I recently got in contact, or someone got in contact with me, and they are a gaming company. They build like interactive virtual like VR games, and so like very very high level gaming company, and they actually have a pretty big community, and they do gung fu in their events, and this is kind of like a novelty type of thing. Like they have different like in real life events, and they have gung fu tables there, and it's kind of like people got introduced to it at Burning Man, like higher ups within this gaming company, not the gamers themselves, but it's something that the owners of the company wanted to do at these events. And they reached out to me because they're like, "Yeah, this gung fu is kind of popular at our events, and so we're thinking that we could actually create a branded product like Tea Blend that we can sell to our community as like an additional revenue stream." And I'm like, yes. So that was actually that really dank matcha genmaicha blend I made for them, because I told them it's something that you can brew or you can brew a gung fu, but doesn't because matcha is like a little tricky. Matcha is fun, and I think it's possible to sell it to people, but there is kind of a barrier to entry for new tea lovers that aren't so experienced with how to make matcha and all of the equipment to make it. Um, but gung fu I think is something that can start very simple, and it's something that goes beyond just matcha. Like there's so many different types of teas that you can enjoy with the gung fu set, or even not just gung fu. It could just be Western brewing, like a Western style teapot. So yeah, I just gave away a lot of free good information. So if you guys are going to use this information, I'd greatly appreciate if you would work with Tealet on your supply chain with it. So yeah, with that said, I think that kind of rounds out my educational portion of the show. I kind of went a little bit longer than I anticipated, but I think it was all good. I don't think I rambled too much. I think I shared a lot of good info. So yeah, if you guys want to join and have a chat with me, the link is right here. You can see the link. It's bit.ly/tletteaparty. Go to that link and you'll come right into the Zoom room to drink some tea with me and Bitcoin. Bitcoin's here. He's a little tired today. We went on a long walk, so he's tired, but he's very excited because I've been doing some good cooking lately. Yesterday I received a very large box of produce, farmer's box, from Carrie Clasby at Intuitive Forager. A very great service here in Las Vegas. If you're here in Vegas, please reach out to me. I can give you the details about how to get this box. They are doing deliveries here throughout the Las Vegas area, and they will just come and deliver it right to you. So yeah, I'll be doing some like live cooking demonstrations. I'll be posting those not here on TLET, but through my personal social media. So if you're interested in that, you can totally try putting the name of the teas under the link. Well, I'm not selling any teas right now, so there's no date and time. I guess I could put the date and time. That's a good idea, Michael. Yeah, the purpose of these live streams is not really to sell tea. It's more to, just keep the community connected and share some information and some tidbits of knowledge around tea. And yeah, because I market mostly to tea businesses, right? So, as much as consumers and tea lovers could enjoy this information and learn something from it, I'm really trying to target this information for tea businesses. So today I was talking about health benefits and kind of the regulations around labeling our products. But yeah, this is all with the hopes that we can keep specialty tea business alive, for one, during this time. So please support local tea business, especially small scale tea business that is supporting high quality tea. And so high quality tea is, simply just tea that you value. It's really hard to say what is high quality, what constitutes high quality. I have my own standard, but it's a very subjective thing, and you could, I'll have to check out this Google Lens. Oh, Joe is here now. He probably wants to share with me. Hi, Joe.
You there?
I'm here. You there?
I am. I wasn't about to miss that conversation. Oh, man.
Oh, yeah?
I'm glad I jumped in on that. That was great. That was awesome.
Good.
Everybody needs to talk about a little bit more.
Well, yeah. I'm sure it's very applicable for you because you're like a health and wellness company, and so health claims are, a whole part of your whole marketing.
Well, for us, it's like I just said this earlier. Your lifestyle is the first medicine, and then like supplemental stuff like substances, tea, and that kind of and herbs and that kind of stuff. That's the second medicine.
Mm-hmm.
So for us, when it comes to health claims, we really try not to sell people on something because that's, I feel like, a big problem with like the health, like the diet industry. You know what I mean? Where
mm-hmm.
everybody's got something to say, and this is the silver bullet. This is that. This is that magic cure to all your problems and this and that. And there's, a truly holistic perspective goes so far beyond that. I mean, you have to make changes to everything in your life. It's not just like, oh, I can drink tea and now I'll be healthy.
Yeah.
I think you touched on that, and that's just, that's not how it works. There's so much more to it.
Mm-hmm.
So when it comes to health claims, we tread very, very, very lightly because we don't want to. The whole point is to kind of get people out of that perspective of like, I think I mentioned this the other day, that use this for that mindset of like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I have this problem, so I'll use this thing to get rid of it, you know? And it's more about changes in your lifestyle and what are you doing all day, every day. There's not just this one easy solution, like drink tea and I'll be healthy. It just doesn't work like that. So we really try and tread lightly with that because
Mm-hmm.
I'm not, one of my biggest pet peeves is MLMs, like multi-level marketing.
Yeah, they're terrible.
And yeah, they're always the first ones to tell you their product will fix all your problems.
Yeah.
And I don't believe in that. My product won't fix all your problems. You will fix all your problems.
Mm-hmm.
I mean that, like from here, you know, it's so much more
Yeah. Yeah.
intricate.
Yeah, a funny story about MLMs I'll throw in is kind of unrelated, but I just want to fuel the fire of your hate for
Yeah.
MLMs, so I'll
Oh
say
yeah.
this.
All about it.
When I was an Uber driver, I one time gave a ride to this hotshot guy that was here in Vegas to it was his conference. He was here to give a conference, and I'm like, wow, okay, you're giving a conference, you must be a big deal. Um, but he's like, yeah, it's the world's largest MLM consulting conference, and I'm like, what does that mean?
No.
And so it means basically that like he works with brands to turn their brand and their marketing strategy into an MLM. And so he immediately asked, "Hey, this is your side hustle. I can tell. What's your main hustle?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I've got a business." And he was like, "Oh, what do you do?" And he's trying to get all the stats from me. And then he's like, "Yeah, you should do an MLM on what you're doing. Tea does really well. Like you can make tea parties." And I'm like, "Well, yeah, I do make tea parties. It's like what I'm known for." And he's like, "Oh, well, you could do some really good business if you do MLMs." And I was like, "Okay, I'll humor you. Like, let me know what I need to do." And he says, "Well, first of all, what's your margin on your product?" And I'm like, "Well, I do wholesale, so it's a little different, than." And then he's like, "Okay, well, um, we need to figure this out, so that your product would have to be competitive like in the retail market, but it needs to have an 80% margin from cost of landing product into the United States to MSRP would need to be an 80% margin." And I was like, nope. I was like,
Yeah.
we'd have to retail my tea at like like $500 for a unit or something like that. And he was like, "Oh, well, that's not gonna work. Can't you just go find cheaper tea?" And I'm like, nope, that's not what I'm about. And I'm like,
That's not my model. And now we're talking about this.
yeah,
Now we're talking
yeah,
about commodity tea
yeah,
again.
yeah. So
Yeah.
that right there is a big lesson about MLMs, that like majority of what you're paying for is not the product itself. You're paying for
Right.
all those levels of marketing.
Yeah.
And so the product
Absolutely.
oftentimes is very low quality product.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So little off topic, but I'm sure
Yeah, there's nothing wholesome about it. And it sucks too because I see so many people that I love, and know that they have I know they're coming from a good place and they get sucked into something like that. And I'm like, yeah, I'm a self-made entrepreneur and this and that, and it's so disrespectful to people who have built their business from the ground up.
Yeah.
You got a box of stuff shipped to your house with all this material that was like, here's exactly what you do and this and that. I've never had anybody teach me anything, and it has been a mess the whole time. You know what I mean? It is not easy. Like I didn't go to school for this. I didn't nothing. I just was like, one day I was like, I need to share this with people.
Yeah.
And we've created everything ourselves. We get compliments on our packaging and on our informational materials. And one of my best friends was even like, "So who are you working for?" And I'm like, he was reading one of our pamphlets, like one of our rack cards that had information about tea on it. He's like, "So who's doing this? Like, who are you working for?" And I'm like, me, man. He's like this is all you? Like you did all this? You like got these printed, you wrote all this stuff? And I'm like, yeah, man.
Yeah.
That's all us. I didn't get nothing from anybody else.
Yeah.
Like, we do all of this. And these MLMs jump on like, yeah, I'm an entrepreneur. And it's like, you still work for somebody. You know what I mean? They're a huge pet peeve of mine, because it's so ingenuine. And I'm all about that genuine nature and that like transparency and things like that, so it's really hard to watch people that I love and I know are smart get sucked into that stuff. It's like, you got a passion and you can do a lot with it, but you chose to follow somebody else's thing,
Yeah. The most recent MLM I came to know about, which is kind of related to the topic of today, is a genetic diet. So like they do a genetic test and they spit out, kind of your code diet that you should have.
Right, like this is what you should eat based on your genes, kind of thing.
Yeah. And I'm like, wow. And I've got like a big group of friends here in Vegas that are all looped into it. And even more, trying to get into it. And it's like, MLMs would be different. I mean, maybe there is some merit to kind of the community building marketing style of MLMs that I think is cool and something to learn from.
Right.
But and I actually have we have a program on TLET's website called the Ambassador Program, and that could be a little bit construed as getting into the MLM level, but
like a franchising kind of deal.
Yeah, so it's like it's very low impact low impact way of getting your toes into the tea business, and that's what I tell people it is. Like, this is not like an MLM, and I do not want you to be doing this forever. Like, I've created this program so that for less than $300, you can start, in the tea business, and we'll give you all the tools and the resources about how to host tea parties, how to host events. We'll give you all of the materials for curriculum on tea education you can do, and then products. So they get a branded product. It is TLET branded, but they get enough inventory, and there's a 50% margin for them, on this product. And I made the MOQs really low so that, for less than $300, someone can get into it. But I communicate to people very early on, even before they jump into this and pay for their first box. I say, my ultimate goal is that within 6 months, you're going to have your own label and your own brand, and you're going to switch from buying these tins to buying bulk and packing your own stuff and doing your own thing. Because, this is not an MLM. Right. But some people, they don't know if entrepreneurship is right for them. So, completely submerging themselves into this whole process and investing, which is not a light thing to do.
No, it's taxing, to say the least. It is a commitment.
So I think there is some merit, and there's things, to be taken from MLMs, but the overall, oh man, it grosses me out. Some of these, I've let some in, because there's good people in them. There are, like you said, you have friends, there are good people in them, and
tons of them.
Yeah, and so the essential oil one, that's a big one.
My God. A lot of that's the epitome of it all for me, because they're on the health claim thing, and also
yeah.
But
I thought it was kind of fun. I met one at a conference that I was at, and she was like, "Hey, you have an event space. We should do an event together. We could do a tea party." And I'm like, "Yeah, I'll invite people over, and we can learn about essential oils, because essential oils is essentially what goes into flavored teas." So I was like, "This could be cool. We could make Earl Grey replicated teas and different type of flavored teas that people are usually used to, and just use the essential oils." And so the actual content of our programs were always pretty good. But then, they ended up, it was just like a recruitment for them. And then they said, "Oh,
Mhm.
Elise, you've got such a good community here. You could make a lot of money. We could just put you downstream from us, and you don't even have to do any work or anything. And you get paid every month for all the people you introduce us to." And I'm
You
like,
get this mansion and a nice car and all
yeah, I was
this
like, I'm
stuff.
gonna make
Yeah.
money for doing nothing. No, I'm not into
Yeah.
that. No, no.
Yeah.
I like to generate value when I make money. So no, thank
Right.
you.
Right. Yeah, the whole flavored tea thing really messes me up too because, like, so obviously I talked about the whole Neelam Alai Earl Grey thing,
Yeah.
um, and we sell a lot of what we call vintage Earl Grey. So
Hmm.
it's an Earl Grey black tea with rose petals, rosemary, and lavender added to it, and people are crazy about it. But it is like we love it. It smells great. It's awesome, but it kind of hurts our hearts because you shouldn't ingest essential oils. I mean, that's just the bottom line. They're not. Your body can't process stuff like that.
Yeah.
The essential oils can actually damage the nephrons in your kidneys, and your kidneys don't regenerate, so it can do permanent damage to your kidneys. It's a very dangerous line to walk. As far as we've had people ask us, like, can one of our wholesalers was like, "Do you recommend, or what do you think about us recommending essential oils in your teas?" And we were like, "No, please, please, please do not do that." And she listened to us, and that was awesome. She came to us and asked,
Hmm.
but it's just not something I recommend. If you drink a little bit of Earl Grey here and there, that's fine, but you shouldn't be putting drops of essential oil in your tea. You shouldn't be drinking constant flavored teas. Tea has enough to offer by itself. It's amazing.
Yeah.
It doesn't need jazzed up like everybody thinks it does. It's not just Lipton tea bags. Like, there's so much. I'm drinking a iced spring Tieguan Yin right now, and it's awesome.
A lot of chemicals
It's
in Tiguan Yin.
What's that?
A lot of chemicals in Tiguan Yin.
Yeah, it's hard to find true, like, organic processing when it comes
Yeah,
when it
it's
comes to
almost
Tieguan Yin.
impossible. Yeah, even if it's
Yeah,
certified organic, it's
right.
yeah. Anshi is like really. This is Anshi Tiguan Yin, or is it like Taiwanese Tiguan Yin?
Oh, what was the first part of that?
Chinese Anshi,
Oh
like the
yeah,
green, the
yeah.
green
Okay,
one.
I thought you said something
Yeah,
else. I was like, I don't know if that's. Yes, it's Chinese. Yes.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I went there one time, and I won't go back because there's no tea for me
You think
there.
it's? I think it's Yunnan. I'm pretty sure.
Oh, it's from Hunan. Well, the
From Yunnan.
from Yunnan.
Yeah, I think so. I'd have to look. But
It's yeah. It should be from Fujian, from Anshi.
oh,
Um,
okay, yeah, that's totally where it's from.
yeah.
Fujian.
Yeah, I went there one time on my way from Chaozhou back up to Shanghai. I was taking the train and I stopped off in Chenzhou, which is like the main city
Mhm.
for Anshi, and so that's where you go to buy Tiguanyin. And yeah, I couldn't find any good stuff. And then I met this really cool guy. He was running like a bookshop, like a library of sorts. Really cool guy, just like super humble and right down my alley. And he was drinking some good tea. And I'm like, what are you drinking? This is really good. And he was like, oh, this is the real Tiguanyin. And I'm like, oh, I want to know about this, because all these other tea shops I've been to and all these tea farmers that I've met, like their stuff gives me a headache, like on contact.
Right.
It's not good. And he was like, oh yeah, because it's all chemicals. Everything is all
Mhm.
monoculture chemicals in this area now. He said, but I've started this company, because in my research of meeting writers and he writes himself, he started writing the stories of all of these elders and the villages, and he found like this mountain community that's like the last standing place for like the traditional Tiguanyin growing and
Mhm.
processing. And he started kind of like a tealet of sorts. Like he showed me this brochure he made. It had like all these profiles of farmers and all their teas, and I'm like,
Cool.
yes, yes, finally I can have Tiguanyin, which I have the samples. Like you're welcome to sample it, but when I tell you the price of it, you'll probably say no because it's like 20
Oh
times
no.
more expensive than any other Tiguanyin you can find on the market. So
Oh no.
um, and it's fine, because they sell it all themselves. It's like such a limited supply, so like they don't care. It's not like they
Right.
need us to buy it. But,
Right. Well, they don't have all that overhead of trying to get it over here and then
yeah,
repack it and this and that. They can just whoosh right out the door.
yeah, there's just enough domestic demand for them.
Right.
Them selling to us would just be a novelty. But I would love to sell their tea. I did. I bought a bunch of samples and I took them. And when someone does ask me for Tea Guan Yin, I say I got it. I don't have it on the catalog because it's way priced out of our market here. But if you're looking for the legit thing, and the clean
I
legit
want to
thing,
try it. You've
yeah,
got some extras. I want to try it. I'm super interested.
yeah, it's really good. So yeah, and so that kind of asks Yvonne's question. Yvonne asked about talking about pesticides and tea. Um, and she says the answer seems simple: buy organic. No, that is not the answer.
What Elise said. 100% agree with that.
That's not the answer. I mean, with all produce, any kind of agriculture product, yeah, buying organic does not mean anything. If anything, it just means that the producer you're buying from is more corporate and more, larger scale and revenue driven than a small scale humble guy. But in tea specifically, there is a big problem with organic certified tea that still possesses chemical residues. And there's several articles that have been written, like third party companies that will go to the store and buy out all of the organic certified product and test all of them, and they find that a grand majority of them test positive, and sometimes even beyond lethal limits of residues. And the main reason for that is that the grocery store brands of tea, and this is also associated with companies that can afford the organic certification, those producers are very large factories that are sourcing their green leaf from like hundreds, if not thousands, of farms surrounding the area. So when the certifier, the auditor comes to certify them, they will certify their factory, and they will certify perhaps if there's like a plantation around the factory that will be organic. But there is also a really large amount of leaf that is like coming from surrounding areas, and those farmers do not get audited. So there's no accountability there, and then everybody's leaf gets all mixed together. So yeah, Celestial Seasoning is one of the main culprits of this. There's one article, and Celestial Seasoning is like all certified organic, right? They in their major tea company, they were like the big company that was kind of called out in this controversy, that all of their certified organic teas tested positive for residues, and it's for this reason. And so that's all the more reason to find teas that you enjoy and value, that are high quality, coming from individual producers that you can see their soil. So when it comes to me, like certifying in my own head if a producer is organic and clean and safe, is looking at their soil. I don't want to see a certification. I don't want to see any of that stuff. I want to go see their soil, touch their soil. Yeah.
You want to see worms.
You want to see worms. You want to see other shit growing there. You want to like step on it and feel it being like squishy and soft. And I don't need anything else beyond that. That's all I need.
Right. Absolutely. I'm sure that's a really big issue in
India. It is.
I'm sure that because with their large scale processing that they have there, I mean, it's just, I feel like you'd run into that problem more often than not.
Yeah, it's really sad actually. When you're driving through like Assam, like majority of the land there is all just covered in tea. It's all just monoculture tea, and you can see between the tea plants, the soil, it looks like styrofoam. It's like you can tell it's solid, and if you walk on it, it feels like cement. It's so solid. So it means it's holding no water, it's holding no nutrients. So yeah, it's like styrofoam. It's like planting something in styrofoam. So like all of your water, all of your nutrients, like you've just got to continuously be adding to it, and nothing is going to stick. It's all just going to, flow right through. Versus like a biodiverse, really organic soil, it has all that other shit in there. It's got all the worms and the tree trunks and the, various root systems and the cover crops and the bugs, and spider webs everywhere and like layers of all this stuff. And so yeah, all the water stays in there, all of the nutrients stays in there, and it makes a big difference. Yeah.
Yeah, our farmers market director said one time, she said, what should you do if you find a worm in your apple? Be grateful.
Yeah.
That's what she said. And I was like, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, that sums it all up right there. Like, if nature wants it, you want it. If nature doesn't want it, you don't want it. You know what I mean? Like, the bugs are our friends.
Yeah, bugs are our friends.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, but sometimes, farmers they don't want the bugs because the bugs, start, eating at the tea leaves but, in some cases the bugs are good, it helps in the processing. So.
Right. Yeah. One of the keys, this is what I always tell people. They're like, well, what do I do if I can't just buy organic? And I'm like, shop small. That's the best thing you can do. The smaller the operation, the better. I mean, that's where you start anyway.
Yeah.
Is look beyond the marketing, beyond the advertising. Whoever's most easily available is probably not doing it. Yeah. They're probably up to something shady.
Yeah, exactly.
So go to the small places where you can like talk, like with you and Tila. It's like we're talking to the owner of Tila. You know what I mean? We're not dealing with this big marketing sector of your company, and then you got to go through a bunch of hoops to actually get a hold of you.
Exactly.
And it goes the same way with your farmers, same way with your food. It's like shop local, shop small, talk to people, shake hands. Mm-hmm. That's the best thing you can do.
So our friend Heidi on Facebook says that she can buy everything that she eats direct from the farmer or raise it herself except for tea. And so that is also something that, you can do, like you may not do it from the grocery store. Like none of your grocery store tea is going to be farm direct. Even if they say it is, it's not. Like it may be factory direct, but it's not farmer direct. So, but there are other vendors, where you can ask them, and don't be afraid to ask them. So like that's my main tip I give to people, more so than saying buy my tea, is ask these questions, and if you don't get an answer, don't be offended, and don't worry about offending that vendor if they can't answer your question, but continue to ask that question, because the more you ask those questions, like where is this from? Can you describe a little bit about the community, about where it's from? Is there a farmer? Is there a tea maker? Because there are those people. Those people do exist. And the vendor, if they can answer that question, then that's great. Then that means that that's a tea that you can trust and enjoy. If that vendor can't answer that question, it's not completely their fault, because the conventional supplier system is not transparent at all. But, you can always tell them, hey, check out Tila. Tila can help you answer these questions. So, yeah, that's it.
Yeah, that's something I say. Basically, the exact same thing is that when you're buying anything, food, tea, whatever, ask them about their processing, ask them these questions. And if they can't give you the answers, or they give you vague answers, that's a red flag.
Yeah.
It's helpful because you can just go somewhere else. If they can give you good answers, like basically anybody who has the answers to these questions is probably very, very willing to share them with you, because they're probably passionate about the exact same things.
Yeah, they'll be really
So
proud to
if
tell
you have a question, don't be rude. This is what I tell all my people at the farmers for when they're going to the farmers market. It's like don't be rude, but be like, so how do you feed your chickens? And if they're like, oh, we give them a little bit, turn around. You know what I mean? Be like, thanks, have a good day. And then walk away.
Yeah.
But if they're like, oh, we feed them all our organic food scraps from our garden and from what we cook at the house, and you know what I mean, and they give you like a very detailed answer, it's like, yes, cool, give me some eggs.
Yeah.
Like, awesome.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
but you got to be respectful. But anybody who can answer those questions will answer those questions gladly.
Yeah.
They probably have them ready. They have the
Oh,
answers ready
yeah,
for
they're super proud of it. But
you. Right.
tea is something tricky with the vendor. If they go to World Tea Expo to meet their vendors, like more than likely they're not going to get this level of transparency. And so I always
Right.
tell people, like be patient with them, like continue to ask the questions, like don't feel discouraged if they come back to you and say, "Oh no, I don't know that answer. Don't ask me." Like don't take that as an answer. Like continue to ask the
Right.
question and tell them these people do exist. Like the tea farmer exists, the terroir information exists. You should be able to find
Yeah.
it, and of course, if you're a friend of ours, you could totally tell them about TLET, and that has worked actually. I have friends that like say, "Oh yeah, I went to this small town somewhere. I went to the tea shop, and I told them about TLET, and a few weeks later, I get an inquiry from them. So, that kind of pressure does work. So
That was something I was curious about. I was going to ask you about that a couple of weeks ago or a week ago or
mm-hmm.
something when we were talking about the expo. But I kind of assumed that going to the expo, there would be a whole lot of the direct access kind of thing.
No.
Like you get a lot of brokers and you get a lot of things like that. You're getting lots of business type people rather than like, hey, here's a farmer actually trying to sell his product, or even a relative or an employee of that farmer.
Yeah.
I feel like you aren't going to see a lot of that at the expo.
No. But you are going to see a lot of banners that say direct trade, farm direct, and all of that.
I'm sure.
Yeah. And, there are, a lot of like Chinese, tea factory representatives, and, and that's like something else that like I struggle with, is that the fact that like I'm not located in those countries, or I'm not Chinese or Indian myself, kind of like devalues my work in that sense. So like someone would say, "Oh, well, I do direct trade because I buy from this Indian tea trader in Calcutta, and that's more direct trade than buying from this American company." And it's like, no, you still can ask those questions about the soil and about the people and all these places. These are all questions that like I'm more than happy to answer. It's kind of hard to offer up all that information, on the front page, because it's a lot of information, but it's there, it exists, and it is accessible. You just kind of have to ask for it.
Right.
Yeah. So Yvonne was asking about growing tea in the United States, and that is very possible. We actually have a page on the TLET website. I'll comment in there that talks about where places, resources, and places where you can.
Isn't there like 3 or 4 farms?
3 or 4?
Yeah.
3 or 400
in the United States.
Yeah.
Specifically.
Yeah.
Oh wow, I didn't know about that. I've only heard of a few of them. So.
Yeah, there are a lot. Yeah. Of course, there's one in South Carolina that likes to convince everybody that they're the only one, but
nah, I don't know about all that. But well, I feel like is not the problem with a lot of these places the fact that they're so young.
Well, they're young, and then they're also just mostly, more than being young, they're just up against a lot of odds, right? And the main thing being that like cost of resources is so much higher here than it is in other places. So you have that major disadvantage, and and then so like you can get a higher value for your tea to justify that difference. So that was my whole start in researching tea. Like, okay, so first I started working for Itoen. I started working for a big tea corporation. But as far as working with farmers and working with Camellia sinensis, that all started in Hawaii, doing a market feasibility study during my MBA for Hawaii grown tea. And so that's like a pretty extensive, long report about this exact challenge, that water costs, organic fertilizer costs, certifications, commercial kitchens. Because if you're going to process tea in the United States, you have to have the same FDA approved commercial kitchen that the other food industry has.
Right.
So those costs are all so high that the minimum price that you can sell your tea wholesale, like from the farmer, like if you were to reach out to them and buy it directly for your business, is like over $1,000 a kilo.
Right.
That's the
Yeah,
minimum
I've
price.
explored some Hawaiian white tea, and I'm just like, wow, like holy cow, I cannot afford that.
Yeah. So that's it, and that exists, that price exists, that value in the market exists, but it's difficult to get that price. You have to achieve the value to get that price, and tea mastery requires time and sometimes generational knowledge, but more so it's just the time invested into understanding your terroir and understanding tea processing. And there are a handful of growers in Hawaii that have been at it long enough that have figured it out. But there's a whole bunch of other tea growers popping up in the United States that are trying to figure it out. And some of them are trying to go the other path. They're trying to say, no, we're going to get some scale and we're going to cater to, like the iced tea market in the U.S. because that's like the big market, and we're going to justify a higher price because it's locally grown. And they're starting to realize that that's not enough. Like farm to fork is not enough to justify. That high increase in price because something like sweet tea or iced tea is so has so little value in the market that yeah, so it's a challenge, but it exists. And there are a lot of nurseries where you can get plants. And I've always, ever since I wrote that report, I have always encouraged people to grow tea as a hobby. Growing tea as a business is not not something feasible, not something that I would invest my retirement into doing.
Well, one thing I've kind of come across is that, with the American tea farms, their plants aren't nearly as old, for one. So a lot of the nuance that comes with, like let's say high mountain Chinese plants is just not going to be present because they don't have the root systems, where like these older trees are drawing up tons of minerals and nutrients from the ground because their root systems are massive. You're in the United States with a 5-year-old tree. I mean, how much of that nuance are you really going to be pulling out? And also, how much of a harvest can you get off of a 5-year-old tree versus an 80-year-old tree? I feel like that's probably some issue there as well.
It's not an issue, actually. A 5-year-old tree will produce just as much as an 80-year-old clone.
Okay.
If you're talking about trees from seed, so like pu'er, like the plant material for pu'er, that's when you're talking about age making a difference. But there are some old trees in the United States. That were planted by like Chinese migrant workers from the plantation days back 200 years ago, 300 years ago. But the main issue is the varieties, right? So that is the concern with the industry being young, is not so much the age of the tree. So a tree from 3 years old will be able to produce enough. So that's not the issue. But if you're taking cuttings from a different terroir, even within other places in the United States, right? Because we don't have like a established nursery system of clones that you can pick up. So like if you're in Assam and you decide, I want to become a tea planter and I have this land and I'm going to plant tea, like there is a very mature network of nurseries that you can go get your plant material to put into the ground and get going right away. And that is plant material that is already selected for your terroir. That doesn't exist here in the States. So that is actually the time-consuming piece of developing a tea garden here or anywhere, any new terroir. That is the big challenge, is that really the best strategy, and everybody hates hearing this strategy because this strategy takes money, it takes time, it takes patience. But the best strategy is to acquire seeds from as many different places as you possibly can, regardless of terroir information or whatever. You just get all the seeds you can, propagate all those seeds out, see the best performing plants, select those plants, let those plants seed out, collect those seeds, propagate them all out, let those all grow out, select the best performing plants, let those seed, take those seeds. You have to do this like at least 5 cycles of propagation from
Right.
seed. And then through all of these selections, you'll find like the most ideal, best performing plant, and you can even start harvesting it and tasting its character.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's what you would select as your mother plant, and from
And
that
then you
mother plant
clone
is what you make
everything.
all your clones from. And
Right.
so that's when things get interesting, right? But that's
Right.
already
So
like
it's not
10
necessarily
years.
the age of the plant; it's the age of the whole system
Yeah,
itself.
exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes a whole lot more sense.
Yeah, exactly. But so a lot of these guys that are like, oh, I got a $2 million investment, I'm going to turn this land and diversify it into tea because I grow blueberries here, and I heard blueberries and tea grow really well together. So I'm just going to bring a whole bunch of seeds from Nepal and just put them in the ground, and I'm gonna be a tea farmer. And it's like, yeah, that's not the best way to do it. The best way to do it would be like, okay, I have 10 years to, build this out. Let me get some seeds from Nepal. Let me try to get some seeds from China. Let me try to get some seeds from Kenya. Like, let me get seeds from everywhere and really do this right. Because, yeah, you're not going to start building up your nursery and cloning out your mother plant until like 7 to 10 years into doing that process.
Right.
Which is not in alignment with typical American business development. Like,
right. That's not, we definitely don't look at the generational thing like we used to. You look at, you could compare that to like architecture or like, more ancient architecture. They were building projects that took forever and would last generation upon generation upon generation. You looked at these old cathedrals and places like that, these old temples, and they had such a longer mindset. And today we live in like, if it doesn't happen in the next 3 years, we don't want no part of it.
Yeah.
We want to reap that reward right away in my lifetime so I can get the most out of it. And then I'll give my kids whatever's left.
Yeah.
And so, and that's why the tea plantations in like China and stuff, I think, exist like they do, is because it was a multi-generational project, and they knew that they weren't getting everything out of it in their one lifetime, but that it would outlast them by a long shot.
Yeah.
That's a cultural difference, big time. So.
Yeah, it's there are some places in the States though where this work has been done,
Right.
and that's exciting. Actually, there's this one place, and he's kind of like the Johnny Appleseed of tea in the United States. Really incredible character that is in a place called Fairhope, Alabama. Really beautiful place on the Gulf. And
it's about the right climate, so yeah.
Yeah. So there's actually a lot of right climates for tea in the States. There's this whole thing called the Camellia Belt. So Camellia japonica, it's like an ornamental flower, is really popular.
Right. Yep.
That's a cousin to tea. They grow in the same conditions, and so the Camellia Belt is like it goes all the way from like even like North Carolina all the way down south to Florida, and then across Texas, and then all the way back up to like Washington State. So there's tea that's growing in Washington. Actually, one of our oldest tea gardens is in Washington State, almost at the Canadian border.
Familiar with one in Washington, so
yeah. But the guy that's in Alabama, he has an interesting story. So his father was like a part of the whole Lipton tea research. So Lipton did do some like pretty addressable research of growing tea in the States for the U.S. demand. That project got squashed because they were like, nope, the commercialism doesn't work. Like we can't do it here. And all of those plant materials and everything were supposed to be destroyed, because Lipton didn't want any of their work to be replicable or used by anybody else. But his little legend is that when he was young and there was like this fire where it was supposed to destroy all these tea plants in this research station, he went there and recovered like a few of them and just grew them himself. And now he's, way into adulthood, and those, few bushes, or it might even just been one bush, have, propagated themselves out, and now he has this pretty lush, diverse, multi-generational patch of tea garden. And he shares his tea plants. So that's why I say he's kind of like the Johnny Appleseed. Is he's like a museum docent, or even higher than that. I think he manages like the history museum of this small little tourist town. And so he gets a lot of people that come through to hear about the history of the town and everything. And his tea growing is a part of that history of that town. And he'll let groups come in and harvest tea there and process that tea and take it for their own drinking. And it's very small scale. But then he also gives plants and seeds to people. He's just very open. He's not a business. He has no commercial intention in what he's doing, and just trying to spread the history of that town. So there are people now that like 20 years ago received plant material from him, and they've created their own multi-generational little plots in Florida or in other places. So that's why I say like 300 to 400. Like, you'd be surprised how much tea is actually growing.
So I might be talking a little less about how much tea is growing and how many of these places are actually producing a marketable harvest. Like, are these small places actually producing and processing enough to share, or is it just going right out the door? You know what I mean? Like, is it something that someone could source from? You know what I mean? Are they producing enough to even do that, or is it just like one small farm kind of sharing with their family and maybe selling at the local market sort of thing?
Yeah. But that's what U.S. grown tea is. It's small scale. Like, maybe like 20 or so of those projects are larger than an acre.
Okay.
Yeah, and then the rest of them.
Okay, I guess that's where I get my numbers from. Is like, who could I actually get tea from? It's like there's only like a handful of gardens out there that I could actually like.
If you're not willing to pay at least $1,000 a kilo wholesale, then none of them.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I think the guys in Mississippi, you can try to get some tea from them. Their price, I don't know. I don't know their pricing or anything. I was helping them, I was very enthusiastic about helping all of the U.S. tea growers, but this is a funny little story about my business, is that like we are known internationally for being like super culturally sensitive and able to like transcend across all these different cultures and work within these different cultural contexts. But when it comes to working with the American farmers, like there is such a cultural clash there that like it doesn't work. So yeah, because the culture of the farmers here is like very independent, and so they've been actually very kind of backstabbing with me, and
standoffish and kind of, yeah.
Well, no, they're more than happy to accept the help and accepts the friendship and the connections and everything. But then, the second that business gets involved, and like, I don't have exclusivity contracts on anybody. I'm not trying to do that, but it's almost like they require that. That's what they want. They want that contract. And it's like, well, I don't want that. Like, I want to help you, and I want, the work that I do for you to ultimately help me. But I know that I'm not able to 100% help you, and I don't want to put myself into that position of being liable for 100% helping you. And so that's why this is an open relationship, and we can, as long as we communicate openly with each other and respect each other, it'll work. But
those promises are, that's a real quick way to knock everybody down all at once, kind of thing.
I don't want to be offering anything I can't provide in the end. So, it's been a little bit difficult for me to work with the U.S. farmers because the ego is high, and the autonomy and the independence is high, and that's part of the American spirit, right? Is that like we We take care of ourselves and we can do it for ourselves. So
well, and they do have the opportunity to do a lot of what you do just because they're American. Whereas if you go to China, India, Nepal, places like that, they don't have what you have as an American. You know, that's the part that they're missing, and that I feel like that's a lot of the reason why they're so willing to work with you is because you have that reach, you have that. I don't know. America's got that special type of culture that most other countries seek in some way.
Mm-hmm.
But the American farmers themselves, well, it's like they're one step away from having it themselves. So I can see how they'd be like, nah.
When I encourage them too, I'm like, hey, your supply is small enough. Like, just go to the farmer's market yourself and sell it yourself, and build your own little thing. Like, you don't need someone like me. But there's one, Bob Jacobson. He's like very humble guy, and he just wants to spend time in his isolated place and doesn't want to have to worry about the international market and trying to get out there. And so, he's been really respectful of our relationship and how things work. But yeah, I've even had even guys that I don't work with yet. I've never sold their product. I've only told them how the network works and how they could sell product on my network. And they had their lawyer send me a letter saying, wanting to solidify that we don't have a relationship and that I can't have my name associated with their name. And I'm like, wow, okay, that's how it is. That's how these guys are. But yeah, I think the guys in Mississippi, they are producing some tea. I as far as what I've seen online, they have an exclusive deal with a supplier in Texas, so you'd have to go through that supplier to get from them.
Right.
But I think they are trying to make their prices more competitive. But that was something that we had always kind of disagreed on from the beginning. I'm like, you shouldn't try to make your product commercial or commodity or ready for a tea bag or iced tea, because the market just doesn't value it. Like, they'd rather just go get cheaper tea from Argentina and Kenya and say it's American, because it's so easy to do that, right? You can get tea from another country and put some American branding on it, and all of a sudden it feels like. And the regulation in the States for it to be U.S. made, local U.S. made, you just have to open a package and repack it here. You don't even have to blend it. You don't even have to make a blend or anything. You just have to open a package and repack it. So you can go to Whole Foods and their local section, there'll be all these local teas. And the same thing at farmers markets. You go to farmers markets and they're selling gunpowder tea, and it's local, support local, and it's this is commodity stuff. It's not.
We get the same thing at literally at Safeway or something. It'll be local honey, and it'll be there's no way in hell that came from anywhere around here.
Yeah.
And you look at the bottle and you're like, oh, so it was packaged in this, in some other state, and then brought here. It's that's not local,
Yeah. Yeah.
No, small.
Yeah.
Yeah, look at it.
So yeah, there is a lot of U.S. grown tea, and it's kind of inaccessible, but it's okay that it is because it's small scale, and I don't think that any U.S. farmers are sitting on big stocks. None of them are rolling in the dough, though. I know that's for sure.
Right.
So if you see someone selling tea in the United States for a really high price, they're not doing that because they're rolling in the dough. They're doing that because growing and making tea is very resource intensive, and they're just trying to make the ends meet. But it can be good, that U.S. the Hawaii Spring white tea that we have is probably the highest quality tea that we have on our lineup, and I mean it's the highest price, so
But when you're only dealing with a little bit, you're willing to put in that extra little bit of energy to make your tea as best as possible. So I see how that could be the case.
Yeah, it's the only option. That's why I say it's the only option. There's no option.
Yeah, you can't produce shitty tea when you got this tiny little farm, It's you need to produce as best a product as you possibly can. So
exactly.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah, you can totally know where your tea grows. Just ask the person that you're buying that tea from. Just ask them. Don't be afraid. Actually, I have a list of questions that you can use. Um, you'll find helpful.
Give me 1 second. I'm not going away. Just right here.
Yeah, I'm just getting that link that has all those questions that you can use for asking potential vendors about where the tea comes from. Yep. Never be afraid to ask questions. I am not seeing the original link, but here's a link that has it. You can see. I posted it across several different platforms, so you can just see it from this link. So questions such as, what is the farm name? What is the website of the farm? Who is the farmer? What is the main contact? What is the farmer address? What is the main farm phone number? I mean, you can even ask questions like this because all this information exists. What languages is spoke among the members? When was the farm established? What altitude are the fields? What certifications do they have? How many owners or partners are involved? How many members do they have? How many members are part-time contractors? What is the minimum wage of the workers? How many acres fields do they have? What cultivars are planted? Are your plants planted from seeds or cloned? Do you accept visitors to your farm? Does your farm have accommodations for guests to stay? What type of tea do you grow and process? What percentage of your production is commodity, bulk, or specialty? What is your average annual production output of finished tea? So yeah, these are all these questions that you can go into detail, and not to say that every vendor is going to have the answers to these questions, but just posing those questions is going to put it into their head and let them know that this is important to the consumer, and so they'll work on getting those answers.
Well, to let them know how serious you are too. Like
yeah.
You answer some of those hard questions, and they're gonna immediately the sales pitch is going to go out the window. And you're like, oh, this person knows what they're talking about. We can talk straightforward, or they'll just be like, yeah, and not give you any answers. Yeah, we deal with the same thing with a lot of our herbs too. I got to ask a lot of those exact same questions because for us, not only do we have to go through all of this stuff with tea, we have to do it with 75 other herbs.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to do this exact same thing with all of the other herbs that we use, and it's not easy. It's a complicated process. It's not like there's not a one-stop shop you can just trust. You have to. People ask me at the market, and they're like, "Well, where do you get your herbs from?" And it's like we source them individually. You have a specific question because you know what I mean. Like if you're asking about one herb, sure, I can go into the detail with you, but I have 40 different herbs on the table, and they're all coming from different places. So it's a complicated business when it comes to sourcing.
It is. It's a lot of work.
It's nuanced, I guess. Is probably the best way to put it. It can become complex very quickly. You really got to trust people. That's the hard part, as we've been finding out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you gotta trust people and trust the information itself. Sometimes the people, they just don't have the information. So, yeah.
Well, and you got to put yourself out there to, you got to let yourself be vulnerable and let yourself get fucked over. Essentially.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's that, and it happens. Where somebody like stabs you, and you're like, man, that sucks. But that's part of the game.
Mm-hmm.
In order to find good sources, it's kind of a trial and error process. And in the weeds, the people will weed themselves out if they aren't legitimate. They will prove they will prove to you quickly what they're actually made of.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
that's the big part with us. You'll find quickly who wants to stick around, who's in it for the long run, who's doing it, who's running an ethical business, who's got their heart in it. You find that stuff out quickly, and you get betrayed and hurt in the process, and it's not always easy.
Yeah,
We've been through that several times. So.
Like they take wholesale accounts from you, or what?
Well, no, just like you find out that they're not as genuine as you thought they were. Like we found this especially with people who want to buy from us.
Okay.
Where they act like, oh yeah, we're all in it, we're all in it. You know what I mean? And then one thing comes up, and they're like, oh, we're not in it anymore. It's like they can't make enough money off of us or something. They're just completely disinterested in our product or whatever. And it's like we were never really interested in our product in the first place because you were paying for that quality.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, oh, well, we can't do that, And it's like, man, I really thought you guys were there. I thought you were at the, you advertise your whole business as like, oh, we offer these amazing products and this and that, and then when it comes down to it, it's really just about money,
Yeah.
and ego. As you've put it a couple of times,
Mm-hmm.
It's all about like that control and
Mm-hmm.
things like that. But people will reveal that to you quickly. And with the suppliers, it kind of goes along the same lines of, they'll sell you until you ask a certain question. Like they'll be the perfect salesman until you ask a certain question and make it clear you know what you're talking about, and then they'll kind of just like disappear into the weeds. You know what I mean? They'll just like that meme of Homer Simpson where he like fades into the bushes.
Yeah.
I've never seen that.
Yeah.
Kind of just like you ask the right question and they're like, you're like, hey, what's up? You got an answer on that one? And they're just radio silence. And you're like, well, never mind, I guess. That sucks. I thought we had something going there. I thought we were actually talking about maybe connecting and doing something, and then it just doesn't happen. So why I prefer local for one, especially with our herbs, because we can actually go to these places and work for them too. We can go out. A lot of our like echinacea is a weed around here. Burdock root is a weed around here. Some of our farmer friends are more than happy for us to just go. They're like, just come out here and take it. We don't want it. You know what I mean? They're like, it's taking over my field anyway. I raise sheep, and you got all this burdock out here. It's just all over in these sheep, And they're like, come get it. We're like, sweet. Now I get to go visit your farm. I get to sit. You invited me into your house. I got to see the whole operation. It's like those are the kind of people you want to work with.
Yeah.
And so we've made a lot of really good friends and really good connections through doing things like that. But that's not always the case, especially with things like I can't find cinnamon in the U.S. It's just impossible. And we use so much cinnamon.
Yeah.
It's one of those deals where like now I have to rely on word of mouth until I can get to that farm.
Yeah.
Same thing with tea. It goes the exact same way.
Where do you get your cinnamon from?
Right now it's coming from Croatia, I want to say. Is that where it's at? I don't know. I'd have to look. I deal with like 70 herbs, so I'd have to look at the list. But if you know a cinnamon farm that I can get in touch with, it'd be great.
Yeah, I got some cinnamon actually.
Yeah, because it's
Sri Lanka.
I want a farm doing each thing, or a farm doing like 5 things. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Not a farm. Not distributors are the worst to work with. They really are.
Yeah,
they're
but
just like,
they
we
have their
got
value
everything.
too.
It's all organic and blah blah. And you're like, no.
Yeah. No, but as far as a distributor, just kind of like Tila, like there's value to it of aggregating, especially these international commodities.
Right. Well, it depends on how big you are. I mean, how many? You know what I mean? You've got so many teas.
Yeah.
These larger distributors, they're like, hey, we've got 500 herbs, and it's like, well, then, now you're losing credibility in my eyes because you've got so many different things coming from so many different places in these massive amounts, and it's like, I can only trust you so much at that point. So it's a difficult business.
Yeah. But for international commodities, it's a challenge. For all your locally sourced stuff, it's great. Yeah, because I'm sure you can just work directly with the farmers, and that's why I haven't tried to expand, into U.S. grown herbs, because it's like I'd rather just tell you to Google a lavender supplier in your local area or hibiscus, you can find it. But things like cinnamon or turmeric or these other herbs that aren't abundantly available in the U.S. Are things that have to be imported. And yeah, turmeric is a hard one. Yeah, I worked with
getting some awesome turmeric from Hawaii right now, so highly recommended.
Expensive.
They're amazing. One of my favorite musicians, actually, he runs a garden down there, and
Paul Isaac.
Some of the most. Yes,
he's my good friend. Garden. He's like one of my really good friends.
They're amazing. Yes.
I was going to ask you if it was his turmeric. Yeah, he does. He has good turmeric.
Yeah, Paul is a huge inspiration for me. Me and Kelly are working on, because we like the cut and sifted turmeric. So we don't want powder and we don't want fresh. We'd like it if because we don't have the facility to process that much turmeric.
Yeah.
So me and Kelly are working on, I keep pushing her every so often. I'll be like, hey, what's up? Did you, because she wants to get into it too. Basically we're looking for a turmeric that will blend with tea. I don't want it powdered because then it just goes right through the strainer.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? We want like little chunks of it, and they really only just sell dried powder or big old boxes of fresh stuff. So I keep bugging them about it, but it's one step at a time, basically.
But that's cool. So they're drying and powdering it. That's cool. I was at their farm just last year, and saw their turmeric harvest. It was impressive. Yeah. Their farm's really nice.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I used to live on Oahu, and I was first friends with Kelly, and when she first moved to Hawaii to be with Paul, and that's how I met Paul.
Awesome.
I do a lot of work with them. They were doing these permablitz where they would, community of people, like once a month we'd meet at somebody's house and we would just like permaculture their whole yard for them, and it was all just volunteer, and then we jump around to different people's houses and do that together.
Awesome.
And I used to build the solar dryer boxes for all these places. So
that's cool. That's super cool.
Kelly drives a lot of their fruits and stuff in the solar dryer box that I left for them.
Right.
But yeah, when I saw them with the turmeric and I was asking them about that, I was like, hey, turmeric's a big demand, and my network of buyers, and they still weren't processing it at all. It was just fresh turmeric, and I've heard that actually having fresh turmeric travel in air it negatively impacts the quality of the product.
That's pretty much the case with every herb. If it's coming from a different place, it's definitely going to degrade some, with changes in pressure and I mean, it's inevitable. That's why that's what humans are supposed to. They're supposed to gather and scavenge from their local environment. I mean, that's what we're supposed to do. We aren't supposed to be shipping stuff 1,000 miles. So. But it does degrade the quality, but it's still better than a lot of the other stuff you can get. So that's awesome. You know them though, because they're amazing people.
Yeah, they are.
Paul is one of the most just genuine, amazing people I've ever met in my life. So
there's a lot of people like him in Hawaii. It's special.
Right, I can imagine. Yeah.
So much. Yeah, Paul's really, really cool. Their new farm is nice, but they have so much going on. That's why I'm surprised that they were even able to set up some processing on the turmeric, because they have so many other projects going on.
Right.
In addition to all the music and the yoga and the other community development stuff that they do.
Right. Yeah, they're very involved. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we go out and see Paul at least every year in Minnesota. He goes to Shangri-La. I don't know if you're familiar, but
was that like a music festival?
Yeah, yep. It's that whole scene. Cool. Wookie Foot is the one that put it on. I don't know if you're familiar with Wookie Foot, but they're the one that puts it on, and Paul's out there every year, pretty much. So.
Oh, cool, awesome. Yeah, I heard he was going to a music festival. That must be the one. Because we do a lot of those music festivals. We do tea. You should look into making a tea lounge at that festival.
We've thought about it. We've thought about the whole trailer kind of deal. As soon as I saw it was that Jasmine Dragon, is that what it's called?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. As soon as I saw that, I was like, man, we've had this idea forever.
Yeah.
Like now I'm like looking at it. I'm like, oh man, this is so tempting.
Yeah.
So it's hard to, it's gonna be really hard to even break even in that kind of business, though, you would think.
Yeah, you don't. Yeah, you don't break even. I mean,
Right.
or you do break even, you know? So like what I always do with these organizations is like I don't make a commercial thing. So then there's not that pressure that you've got to like make enough money to cover the vendor fee and all the expenses.
Right.
But you pitch to the organization of, hey, we're adding a value to the overall experience of your events.
Right.
You know, so first of all, you know, like volunteer passes for all the people that are going to be working there, and then also some stipend to cover the transportation costs and the tea costs and whatnot.
Right. And then you don't set up with all the vendors necessarily.
Yeah, you can be a part of the festival. So like the Beloved
Festival.
Festival.
You can park back in the campground, you know, and set up back there. Yeah.
Yeah. Or try to get, you know, closer to the stage and the dance floor, you know, because the tea area ends up being like a highly regarded kind of grounding space for the overall event that people like will retreat to, you know, if
right.
you know they're feeling overwhelmed or tired or whatever. So it is nice to be kind of in the action somewhere.
Right.
But cool. Yeah.
Yeah,
awesome.
I want that cinnamon link, so send me that.
Yeah. Yeah.
If honestly, any herb supplier that you want to share, I will gladly look into it.
Well, we would supply it to you.
Sweet. If you want to do it that way, then that works just fine.
Yeah, because we a lot of the growers that we're already importing for, they also have other products, you know, so we can order it along with the other things that we're already importing.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah,
we'll have to. Those are now like the spices like cinnamon and such, like the suppliers I'm working with, like maybe the price point's too high now, but I am working on, you know, more like specific suppliers that are more equipped to offer, you know, quantity and all of that. Because the suppliers of cinnamon that I have, like they're doing cinnamon kind of as a novelty, so you know the price is not competitive, but it would definitely be more affordable than Hawaii turmeric, you know. So it just depends. I'll let you know.
Do definitely stay in touch on them.
But yeah, I think I've been on for over 2 hours now, so I think I'm going to end the live stream. But Joe, you wanted to chat? Yeah, we can stay on and chat. I'll just go ahead and sign off from the stream.
Do I stay on?
Yeah, you go ahead and stay on. It's fine. I'll just stop the stream. So, bye everybody. I'll see you tomorrow.
Peace.
Thank you for tuning in.